Hey everybody, welcome back to the Modern Customer Podcast. I'm your host, Blake Morgan. Today we're talking about an industry that is a microcosm of the world and of the business world, specifically when we think about customer experience. Cruise ships promise to offer some of the most elegant customer experiences, and a cruise experience should transport the customer out of the misery of everyday life to take them somewhere new and beautiful and wonderful. To talk about cruise ships and customer experiences and expectations is Paul Rutter, the author of 2 books, including You Can't Make This Ship Up. He has been a cruise and entertainment director at Royal Caribbean since 1991. We are talking about customer expectations. We're talking about technology on a cruise ship, and we're talking about what it's like to live next to your customers 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, working on a cruise ship. Please enjoy this podcast with Paul Rutter. Paul, welcome to the Modern Customer Podcast. Where are you calling in from today?
Well, hi, Blake. I am calling in from Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Beautiful, cloudy Fort Lauderdale, Florida.
Is it cloudy today? Is it humid, or is it a beautiful, humid-free day in Florida?
Well, the reason we live in Florida is for these days where it's, 65, 70 degrees. It doesn't really matter anything else. As long as it's nice and cool like that, everybody in Florida's happy.
Right. Yeah. I mean, Florida is so beautiful. It's really tropical. And I think even just being in any kind of humidity, I feel like I'm on a tropical vacation. So I get it. Well, welcome to the Modern Customer Podcast. Lately, I don't know if it's post-COVID, but people just seem to be wanting to be back on a cruise ship. And I know you have so much experience in the cruise industry, and we have so many lessons we can learn as customer experience professionals listening and watching this podcast about running a cruise ship. Let's just hear about the high level of your career for those who don't know you, and how you came to do what you're doing now.
Well, thank you so much for the invitation. I started working on cruise ships over 40 years ago, before the Love Boat even came out. And so I've been working on board some of the largest and most luxurious cruise ships in the world. I've had just an incredible opportunity. My job on board is cruise director, which means I'm in charge of all activities and entertainment. So, Blake, let me ask you, have you taken a cruise before?
It's so crazy. I've never been on a cruise ship.
Okay, well, that's the first thing we need to do is get you on one. Cruises are great. They're very popular. But one of the things about the cruise industry that people don't realize, it's one of the very few industries in the world where we actually live with our customers 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
That's a good point.
So I work on board and our customers are with us. So the first thing when I talk to businesses on land, my first question is, could you survive if you had to live with your customers 24 hours a day, 7 days a week? And most people look at me and get wide-eyed and glassy-eyed. And just like you, they say, oh, I never really thought about that. But that's what we do. We live with our customers 24/7. So we have to have policies and procedures and principles in place in order to deal with any sort of circumstance. So let me give you an example. The largest cruise ships in the world, well, there's one coming out in January 2024, over 7,000 people, along with over 2,000 crew members. That's over 9,000 people in a big metal ship in the middle of the ocean. What could possibly go wrong?
Yeah.
Well, the answer is pretty much anything that can go wrong on land can go wrong on a ship. And so, for instance, let's say somebody's toilet stops working and they come to us and say, well, my toilet stops working. Well, if it's a Friday, we're not going to say, well, sorry, we don't work on weekends. We'll send somebody on Monday. That's not going to work when you live with your customers. We send somebody within 15 to 20 minutes to make sure it gets fixed. And then we follow up, and then we call back, an hour later or 2 hours later to make sure it's still running properly. We might send them chocolate-covered strawberries for their inconvenience because we inconvenience them in some way. And so it's really a very interesting dynamic where you live with your customers 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And so You have to have procedures in place. And let me just add to that.
Let me stop you. Let me just stop you
Okay,
really right there. Put a pin in
sure.
that idea. So let me
Okay.
just ask you, what is it, Paul? I have to ask you, what is it about the cruise industry where you have some industries where the expectation for service is so high, and then you have other industries where the expectation, the delivery, the bar is so low? So why do the industries where it's so low, like what are they missing? Why does the cruise industry get it so easily?
Well, there's different levels to, let's say, the cruise industry. There's some cruise lines that cater to mass market. So you have your Carnival and your Royal Caribbean and your Norwegian Cruise Line. They deal really to the mass market. And then you have a luxury level that's a step up that costs more. And then you have a premium level that's the top of the line. That's the very small ships. It could be $500-600 a day per person to go on a ship like that. So just like on land, you have your different levels of a Walmart and then a Nordstrom. The expectations are totally different. If you go to Nordstrom or if you go to Walmart, the same thing is true in the cruise industry. Expectations are different depending on how much you're going to pay. You're not paying the same for a Silver Seas cruise, which is very small and unique, as you are. You're paying more for that than you are for, let's say, a Carnival cruise line, which is more mass market. So that's why there's different levels, because there's different sets of expectations that people have depending on the amount of money that they pay for their cruise. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, it's interesting though because you have industries where the price is very high. Let's say cable. Cable is to me very expensive. You pay maybe 150 to $200 sometimes, and you don't get a great customer service experience, but the price is still very high. And so in some industries, they've been able to get away with that, or with internet or healthcare in many experiences. I mean, we actually have great healthcare, but we pay a premium for it, but others pay still a premium and they don't have great experiences. So why do you think, just in your speeches that you travel, your consulting, like why do some clients not want to invest in customer experience when for us it's so clear that it's so important?
Some companies think that customer service is an expense that they can't really afford. They look at it as like a tiny little department in the corner of the building, where I've always said that if you have customers, you're in the customer service industry, whether you want to be or not. Something's always going to go wrong. Business is great if everything goes right, but it's when things go wrong, which is real. Some companies really stand out with their service. Customer service is the new marketing now. You cannot compete on price alone, because as we learned during the pandemic, a cheaper price is a click away in pretty much anything. I mean, even in your cable example, people are ditching cable maybe to go to streaming services now. And so there's always going to be other options for people in the business world. And so that's what it's all about, is getting those options. And I think with customer service, if the way you treat your customers, that's going to cause brand ambassadors who are going to go out and talk about you on social media. And so that's why I think customer service really is the new marketing. You really define your company by how you treat your customers and your employees.
I think that your cruise ship example is a microcosm of the world because you do have to think about everything that could go wrong because you are literally an island unto yourself and no one is coming to save you. If there's a problem, like you're going to fix it, or if not, your customer is going to be in your face literally 24/7 about it. What do you teach your audiences about how a cruise ship is representative of what they're doing on land? What are the parallels?
I think the first thing you have to compare, let's say, a cruise ship to a land-based business is you need to have some sort of good communication services. You need to have compassion. You need to have empathy. I think on a cruise ship, because you're right there, if something goes wrong, for instance, let me give you a good example. We have people who fly, let's as an example, to Miami to get on a cruise. Sometimes they come to the ship, they don't have their luggage. The airline has lost their luggage. So now they're coming on a cruise really upset because they don't have their luggage. Well, it's not something that we did. We didn't lose their luggage. The airline lost their luggage, but we're inheriting that problem. And we cannot ignore that problem. So what do you do when you have a family come on, we've had honeymooners come on board where their luggage has been lost. And so we go out of our way. So we prepare for things like this. So we might have toiletry articles, toothbrush, toothpaste, things to give them. We may have a tuxedo for the gentleman to wear on a formal night. We have extra dresses that some of the ladies, the crew members on board, will donate clothes for the ladies to wear, let's say, on a formal night. We will give them money to go out and get T-shirts and shirts and shorts in the gift shop, things like that. And so we have to have these procedures already in place. We can't be thinking of them new all the time. And so with all the different ships, when they have different solutions, we all record them so we see what the best practices are on all the ships, which is how we have a sort of a database of how we can treat our customers if there's ever a problem in the future. So that's just one example. If somebody comes on without their luggage, well, we didn't
Yeah.
cause a problem, but we have to deal with the problem. And so we have to have compassion and empathy in order to deal with this. I've given some of my clothes to passengers who come on without luggage, and they are so grateful and so thankful.
Wow.
And that's what they remember the next time, is that we went out of our way for them.
So let's talk about the future and technology. One of the examples I really like is Disney cruise ships and the way that they're innovating with technology. I've personally not been on this cruise ship, but I've heard that with sensors and their bands that they create, their watches, they're creating more ways to track passengers, send them real-time personalized information, and just create a more rich customer experience through technology, through their app and everything. Is that something that you have seen or are researching in your work?
That is so big right now. Every cruise line pretty much is coming out with their own app, which you use on board the ship. You can book reservations for specialty restaurants. You can book reservations for shore excursions. The one thing that we hate on board a cruise ship are lines. We don't want anybody to stand in line for anything. And in the old days, they used to stand in line to book their tours, or they would stand in line to get a table at the dining room. All of that is done by apps now. And the app is sort of a living document. It keeps improving all the time. We have a very big team in our head office that is constantly trying to improve the app. And so different cruise lines see what the other cruise lines are doing with their technology. And so we don't want to be left behind. And so we're always keeping track of what the competition is doing. Competition is great. We don't mind the competition at all because it just improves the overall product. But technology is so important. Wi-Fi is so important. People come on board and that's the first thing they want to do. They want to stay connected to the world. And so over the years, we've seen Wi-Fi connections get better and better. Things like that. Technology is so important. And pretty much the major cruise lines are all now coming out with their apps. You mentioned the bands that open the doors for them, or to pay a bill, you just hold your band up to the checkout, to the register there. And so technology is very, very big now in the cruise industry, and it's just getting better.
Do you see ebbs and flows in interest in cruise experiences? Like, obviously, after COVID, what are the perceptions now of getting on a cruise? Are people more excited to do that, or are they have more trepidation?
Bookings for cruises right now are higher than they were before the pandemic. The cruise industry has just had their best, what they call a wave period. It's like December, January, February, those key months where that's when most people book their cruise. They're up north, they're cold, it's winter, there's snowstorms. They say, let me get out of here. So December, January, February, it's called the wave season, and bookings for future cruises are higher than they've ever been. And a trend in cruising is now more towards families. Cruise lines, the big cruise lines, are trying to get the kids involved and get more activities for kids because the kids are going to grow up and they want them to be loyal to that brand. And that's what it's all about, is staying loyal to a brand. And so family cruising is very, very big now. They want more and more families. In the old days, maybe in the 70s and 80s, it was for the older, wealthier people. But the whole cruising industry has changed now. It's more towards, and if you see these commercials on TV, it's all about the families and the slides and all the
Yeah.
activities for the kids. It really has changed that way.
Yeah, I mean, we don't do a lot of vacations. My son was born during COVID, so obviously we weren't going anywhere.
Oh,
And now the idea of a cruise sounds very appealing. I have a 3-year-old and a 7-year-old because you can keep track of your kids. There's a child care center, and you really there's something for everyone, and you know what's happening with your kids at all times. So, and maybe you don't even need to get on an airplane. Maybe you leave locally. So that's sort of where my brain is as a mom. Actually, my in-laws just got off a cruise yesterday in Mexico, but they didn't have good internet, so they were a little disappointed about that. But it seems like people are generally in a good mood after a cruise. Let's talk about your role of booking entertainment. I mean, that's so interesting because I imagine you also do speeches yourself. But when booking entertainment for cruises, like what are some of the things that customers want in a show and entertainment? What are they looking for now?
I think the big thing is variety. We try to do a little bit of something for everybody. So, talking about the major cruise lines, they all do production shows, which are getting more and more technical. I mean, it's just there's people flying all over the theater, and there's aerialists, and now they have trampolinists, and it just the production shows are absolutely wonderful. And then we try to get to headliner performers. We have wonderful comedians who you've seen on TV. We have singers and impressionists, comedians, jugglers, ventriloquists. So we try to have a little something for everybody. Now, depending on the part of the world where you are, if you're in Europe and you have lots of different nationalities and lots of different languages, we go to more visual acts. We'll have more magicians who really don't have to speak because you don't know if you have Italians or French or Spanish speaking or along with English speaking. So you have more visual acts as opposed to more comedians, because comedians, obviously you need to speak that language in order for it to work.
Europe is tough though, like, for comedians in Europe, like, even just me giving a speech in Norway, you just as an American, like, the jokes, they don't always land the same, so it is
Correct.
harder in Europe, I think.
Yeah. And so they go to more visual acts over there. But entertainment is always on the cutting edge. For instance, on some ships in the world, I know Royal Caribbean has ice skating rinks. So they have professional ice skaters who have appeared in Olympics and world championships. They have skaters from all over the world. They do a professional ice show. They have high diving shows. So they have high divers up 18 meters in the air doing all this high diving on a moving ship in the middle of the ocean. We talked about aerialists before performing. So on land, it's difficult enough, but when you're on a moving ship in the middle of the ocean, it can be a little bit dangerous. So we have to be careful about that,
Right, I could imagine with the ship moving a bit, if you're like a Cirque du Soleil performer, that could be dangerous.
which we have.
For that
Yeah.
aerialist or what you call them. Let's just talk about the future of the cruise industry. You talked about more family friendly things. You talked about technology. Are there any other trends that you're seeing that the customer centric audience that watches the show should be aware of?
One of the great things about the cruise industry is crew members are from probably over 70 different countries. That's the fascinating thing about working on a cruise ship, is we have so many nationalities on board. So as an American, I'm one of the minorities. On the last ship I was in Alaska over the summer. We had 860 crew members on our ship. 12 were American. So
Wow.
the big thing in cruising now is that we're going all over the world to find workers. So a lot of the people are from India, from China, from Indonesia, from the Philippines. And how do we keep these employees engaged? That's a big thing in the cruise industry now, is employee engagement. Because how do you keep people from over 70 different countries engaged to wake up every morning with a big smile on their face, wanting to deliver outstanding customer service for 6, 7, 8 months in a row without a day off? Because in the industry, we work 7 days a week. There's no such thing as a day off. And so employee engagement is so important. Obviously, finding workers here in the U.S. after the pandemic, that was a big challenge. But also in the cruise industry, trying to find employees. Ships are getting bigger and bigger. They need more and more crew members on board. And so that's going to be a challenge, is finding the workers and training. Training is so important as well. You just don't have one training when they come on board a ship. Training is constant, over and over. Month after month, you constantly do training in order to deliver the product.
And do you see robots and automation, Paul, as a solution to needing more staff?
Well, it's funny you should mention that. We're way past that. We have robotic bartenders on board some of our ships right now. You put an order in the computer or the tablet, and these mechanical arms will come by, and all the bottles of alcohol are in the ceiling, and you'll see these robotics go up to each bottle and get the right alcohol and the mixture. And so we have robotics on board. It's sort of it's something to see. I don't think it's going to take over the industry, but it's interesting that yes, even in technology, let's say in the dining room, instead of writing out an order on a piece of paper, they're just putting it right in the tablet so that the order immediately goes back into the kitchen in order for the food to start being prepared. So technology is important. We do have, robotic bartenders, if that's anything. But yes, they are starting to look for things like that.
Is something that you're involved in persona work, like where you look at the different types of customers that come and what they're looking for, what their expectations are? Is that something that you're involved with?
It's something that our company is involved with, but it's not something that me personally am involved with on board the ship, because as soon as one cruise is over, the next cruise comes. But we have so much data on our customers, what they like, what they don't like, where we can improve. We do surveys. At the end of every cruise, we get rated. Now, think about that on land. If, every customer filled out a comment card, you can learn so much from comment cards. I know some businesses are afraid of surveys, but you can learn so much from them. If you look at them as a learning tool, you really can learn a lot from surveys, from getting customer feedback. And so we get customer feedback all the time. We have special customer focus groups to see about things. If we want to try something new, we'll try focus groups to see if that plays well. We have our very loyal customers that we know we can go to time and time again and get their feedback. So surveys are very important. People say, oh, I don't know how to do a survey. Well, you can just start by calling your customers on the phone and asking them, how you can improve, or if they were happy with the experience with you. So we have one standard on board our ships, and that is to create an exceptional experience that exceeds expectations. That's all we want to do. We want to exceed your expectations. And if land-based businesses do that, then they will get their customers coming back over and over again. We know that if we exceed expectations, they'll book their next cruise right on board while they're there. This cruise, they will book their next cruise while they're with us,
Yeah.
because they know the product and they know what to expect. And that's what people want, is the repeat business. That's the foundation of any business, is getting your customers to keep coming back over and over.
Yeah, I mean that's the name of the game, is that customer retention. Any final thoughts on what makes the best cruise customer experience?
Well, I think from a customer's point of view, attitude is everything. And so let me give you an example. Going back to the lost luggage, when people come on with lost luggage, we've had people come on who have lost their luggage. The airlines have lost their luggage, but they have the best time. They don't care. They're in great moods. They don't let that affect them. But we've also had people who've lost luggage, and it's the worst thing that's ever happened to them, and they're miserable, and they cause problems for anybody. So my answer to your question is that attitude is so important. How you look at life, how you look at these situations can really help. And so for people who want a good cruise, there is so much to offer. But if you see a little piece of dirt on the floor and that ruins your cruise, then I think there's bigger problems than just not being satisfied with the cruise. So I think attitude is so important.
So what the customer is looking for, you're saying depends on their attitude, which I agree. But I would also say, as a customer myself, like if I stay in a hotel and there's cookies, I've had, cookies on the floor of my hotel room that weren't mine. And, then it just makes you feel bad. You're like, well, I paid so much and there's trash on the floor. So as far as like what customers are looking for today, I mean, obviously they're on a cruise to get away, to experience something new, to get away from their problems, their everyday problems. You're the entertainer. So would you say like the escapism and transporting them to another world in a way is one of the key things you're delivering?
Absolutely. And the answer to the problem is how quickly the company or the cruise line will respond if there is a problem. If they respond in 5 minutes and take care of the problem, then you're probably happier than you were before the problem ever happened, because you know that the company is going to listen, the company is going to care, and the company is going to take care of any problems that there might be. And so it's really the response to the problem, what you're looking for from the company that you're giving your hard-earned money to. So certainly in your example, when you see cookies on the floor of a hotel room and you bring it to the hotel's attention, you're waiting to see how they respond to that situation. Do they say, hey, it's not our problem? Or do they quickly either clean it up or give you another room or upgrade you to a room to make that situation go away? So really the response by the company is going to be so important.
Absolutely. Let's do some rapid fire questions to get to know you a little bit, Paul. Does that sound good?
Sure, let's do it.
All right. Let's start with what show you are currently streaming on a streaming service.
Uh, well, when I work on a ship, when I come home, I have to catch up on all the shows I keep hearing about.
Yeah.
So I'm in the middle of I'm getting towards the end of Succession now, the
Oh,
last season of Succession, because everybody keeps saying, "Oh, it's a great show, great show, great show." So I'm catching up on Succession. I'm more of a sports and news guy, so I don't really tape a lot of shows because for many months I'm not home. But I'm in the middle of Succession right now.
I didn't realize you're really working on that cruise ship. You're not in the office during the year. Is that
Oh no, I'm on the ship. Yes, all the time.
that's
I
amazing.
don't work in their office. No, I work on board the ship.
Okay. What do you do to relax at the end of a hectic day on the ship, I guess?
Um, Comedy is always good. I like to watch something funny. I like to laugh, and that relaxes me. So I'm show me a funny video or anything on YouTube, and I'm very happy.
What's your idea of perfect happiness?
Boy, a nice sunny day on the beach in Aruba or St. Martin or any of the Caribbean islands or going on a glacier in Alaska, taking a helicopter on Alaska, seeing the world uh, has really taught me a lot. And so I'm in a happy place when I'm traveling the world.
All right. And what is one mental health strategy for managing hard days?
I'm big into yoga and meditation. I
Mm-hmm.
try to work out. I think exercise is very good for stress, but long time ago, I got to yoga, into hot yoga, Bikram's yoga, and then I also meditate to keep the stress level low, because working on a ship, living with your customers can be very stressful.
Right. Absolutely. If you could have lunch with anyone, dead or alive, who would it be?
Oh, wow. There's so many stock answers to that. Again, I go to the comedy routine. I was always a big, Johnny Carson fan. I'd love to sit with Johnny Carson and just talk that. I'm just, Big into comedy and laughing. And so I always loved watching The Tonight Show. So if I can have dinner with Johnny Carson or Dave Letterman or people like that, I'm more than happy.
And lastly, if you had to describe your outlook in one quick motto, what would it be?
Attitude is everything.
Perfect. And if people want to read your book or learn more about you, how can they do that?
Well, thank you for asking. My website is paulrutterspeaks.com. Everything's available there. I have 2 books out. My latest book, You Can't Make This Ship Up, is about experiences that happen on board the ship and what we do as a business to deal with them. It's more of a business book, but crazy things that happen on board. I love to speak to companies. I love to talk about employee engagement, repeat business, customer experience. It's all about the experience and keeping customers coming back over and over again. So Paul Rutter Speaks. I'm on YouTube. I have a channel on YouTube. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, all those good things.
All right, Paul. Well, thank you so much for joining me. It's really been a pleasure, and hopefully, we'll connect maybe on a cruise ship someday. I'll run into you.
Blake, I would love that. Absolutely. Make sure you come up and say hello.
All right, everybody, you've been tuning into the Modern Customer Podcast. Until next time. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel or follow me on social media, including Instagram, LinkedIn, X, and more.